Let's just say this out loud. Kids today seem ruder, sharper, quicker to snap, and harder to parent than ever. In this episode, I'm breaking down why disrespectful behavior has exploded in the last decade and what actually is driving the eye rolls, the back talk, and don't talk to me, and all those explosive reactions. We're raising kids in a world that is overstimulated, underrested, overpressured, green saturated, and moving faster than their brains can actually develop. And kids have to keep up with all of this stuff, do their schoolwork, and be respectful all the time. And when a child's nervous system is overwhelmed, they lose access to a lot of these skills, to patience, to empathy, to the right tone, to self control, perspective taking, flexible thinking. In other words, all the things that adults interpret as respect. So kids are more disrespectful than ever today? No, they're actually more dysregulated than ever today. And dysregulated kids respond with bluntness, defensiveness, irritability, shutdown, avoidance, all those things, all those behaviors that are just skyrocketing, leading to just an incredible amount of diagnoses. Not to say that none of these kids have clinical diagnoses, but are we really in an epidemic of ADHD and mood disorders and oppositional defiant? Or are we an epidemic of dysregulation? We're in an epidemic of dysregulation. Not just those kids, but mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and a lot of people, the people who cut me off on the highway. We're living in a world where people are on edge. And kids today, they don't want to be disrespectful. They don't want to be dysregulated. It really becomes the only thing their brain can do at that moment because they are in a survival mode. That sympathetic dominant takes over. They move out of that calm state if they were ever in a parasympathetic calm state. And they are like, I've got to survive. I don't want to have this stress. And that's where all of these behaviors spill over. Talk a lot about a cup that's full. And so when we have a cup that is just has enough water in it, that is of a regulated kid versus a dysregulated kid, there's a small amount of water. But when we have a dysregulated nervous system, it's at the tippy top. So all these little things that happen that you maybe aren't bothered, or maybe their cousin isn't bothered, maybe the kid in the classroom isn't bothered, but Joey is bothered because the system is already activated and it spills over. There's only a certain amount of stress an individual nervous system can tolerate. And there's variations. And guess what? You know we can regulate. But when the nervous system is running too hot or too low, goes under or overstimulated, the prefrontal cortex, our job manager, is going to go offline. We're going to see emotional reactivity, impulse control problems, tone becomes sassy. We're going to see low frustration tolerance, which to me is really a crisis amongst kids because they're losing their problem solving skills. And once you lose problem solving skills, you don't see anything but problems. We say all the time in the Hodge household, we don't got problems, we got solutions. Okay. Because there's always a way. Maybe it's a path you don't want to take, but there's going to be a solution. When kids are dysregulated, you're going to see, stop talking to me. You don't get it. Leave me alone. And it's not that these kids are bad. I mean, I hate when people say kids are bad. I know bad parents, but I don't know bad kids. And kids move to have issues. It's a neurological state of dysregulation. It's a regulation problem. They're just not able to get into that calm, regulated state. Again, maybe they were never there. Maybe the nervous system doesn't know how to be there. Mark, this dad, told me he was like embarrassed to admit, and parents will tell me this, that I don't even like being around my kid. I mean, I think we've all been there where you're like, please, I hope they sleep in a little extra or they don't come out or they actually go to their room and ignore me. But he had a daughter and she was 12. She was really smart, did great in school. She was artistic. She had a lot of good assets, but she was like a viper. When she had 1 ounce of stress, she was brutal. she would flip out. Everything would like be an explosion, right? If her sister was breathing the wrong way, blow up, change in plans, a simple question, what do you want to eat? A reminder to like get ready for bed, full on blow up all the time. And the dad was like, I can't even stand her. And I was like, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that you feel safe enough to tell me that because this is what happens. And he really said his daughter used to be a very sweet kid and look deeper. It wasn't that she really was being disrespectful, it was that her nervous system was constantly in overdrive. And the more stressed she became, the sharper her tone got, the more the conflict got. And she didn't mean to be unkind, but she had lost access to emotional regulation. And once we focused on calming the nervous system, everything kind of came down and we repaired the relationship between the parents because both the parents were in conflict with the daughter, but really it was dad who was really taking the brunt of it because he was really taking it very personally and then he would dysregulate. And so the mom was like, I'm just going to put my shield up, really not fall into this. And so she would then turn to argue with the dad. So we worked on regulating her in a variety of ways. She had to do some therapy. They had to do some therapy as a family and as the kid, because we can't just blame the kid. But once she could regulate, then she was capable. Kids don't wake up and say, I'm going to be rude to my mom today. They may say, I hate you, but they don't really hate you. We joke all the time because, like, if I'm not doing school pickup, I'm like, your favorite parent is picking you up. Mr. Hodge, they're at the age where they have more fun with their dad. And that's okay because I was number one when they were little. But kids don't wake up thinking, I'm just going to be rude. They act disrespectful when they're overloaded, when their nervous system is feeling unsafe, when they're frustrated and don't see a solution. How about when they're tired and hungry, when they're overstimulated by screens, when they're in fight or flight because every little drip has taken their nervous system, has filled their cup, when they're understimulated and checked out, because that happens too. And then and when they're emotionally flooded. And kids get emotionally flooded for a lot of reasons. This past weekend, there were actually two runaways from my suburban, pretty, bucolic Connecticut town near here. And somebody picked them up in a car. And there was like, everybody was talking about it. Thankfully, the kids were found. I definitely really want to do an episode on safety and predators because I actually worry about that a lot, not just with my own kids, but particularly for young women. I think this stuff has always been going on. Philomena always made me be alert and actually taught me what to do in situations before it was kind of known. And I always shared that with my friends and actually got my friends out of jams because I just was fearless. But the point of this story is that this was a situation that really kind of heightened a lot of people. And kids were talking about it and were scared by it. And people were also judging these kids. We don't know what happened. We'll find out. But everyday life can cause kids to be emotionally flooded. And we feel like we've become just numb to things like school shootings and violence, predators and things like that because kids are faced with these challenges. And I don't want to dismiss that as an activation because some kids, no matter what, whether they're act like it's a nothing or they're crying, it's scary out there. And these are all things that add up and we have to counter them. So, what I also want to say, one of the things that is just one of the most common things parents will say to me is, my kid is bright, but they didn't tell me they're anxious. They didn't tell me they're depressed. They didn't tell me they're mad. They're dysregulated. They're not going to say, I'm dysregulated. They're going to say things like, leave me alone. You never listen. Maybe they're going to drop an F bomb on you. Maybe they're going to call you stupid or I'm stupid. But the message is the same. The delivery is different. It's, I'm dysregulated. Why are we so struggling today? I mentioned some of the things. There's just constant sensory overload, constant noise. That nervous system doesn't get a chance to calm down. We have emotional burnout, right? Kids are holding it together all day and crashing at home, classic sign of dysregulation. Decreased face-to-face interaction, tone, empathy, and patience are harder to build without human contact, people. Even myself, I'm like, "Get off that damn computer with your friends and, like, invite them over." It's very easy in the summer because we got a pool. Because pools and cats were required when you married Roseann Capanna-Hodge or Roseann Capanna at that time. Love me a good pool. And I love the water. I think it's really amazing. It's a great way for kids. There are lots of places you don't need a pool. You can go to the lake, you can go to town swim place, whatever. Just for are fortunate enough to have a pool. But you need in-person practice to connect. Hyperstimulation from devices, just constant arousal creates shorter frustration tolerance, no recovery time. I just talked about overscheduling. That's leaving kids without periods of time to regulate. You must practice regulation in order to regulate. You can't demand regulation. The nervous system needs to be like, oh, this is what a regulated state is. And that's amazing. Like when you do neurofeedback, you move the nervous system into a regulated state immediately in 2 to 3 seconds of the first time you do it, which is why it's so powerful. And then the brain learns to go into that regulated state. I just love watching people do neurofeedback. For those of you that are interested in the limited amount of time that I have in doing clinical work and you want to work with me, you can go to drroseanne.com/help. I'm so much more than neurofeedback. We are a 6-month concierge program. Who knows by the time I'm doing this, if I will be doing this, but you can go to drroseanne.com/help. No matter what, you're going to be guided to the right solution. So what do we do in the moment? Number one, don't match their intensity with your annoyance. Soft tone, soft body lowers arousal. So you can acknowledge the emotion without saying you like it, right? 'Cause you're overwhelmed. Sounds like you're frustrated right now. So it reduces shame, opens the door for communication. You want to step out of the power struggle. When the brain is in fight, flight, or freeze, you can't reason. So you can pause, you can be quiet, you can whatever. Don't talk a lot. Just be there. Don't get into the dynamic with them. Even when you're super annoyed, don't do it. Co regulate before correcting tone. Hold the boundary after the nervous system calms. You don't have to address it right then and there. That's your stuff. You can come back after. And man, some of the best conversations and some of the best shifts that I have had with my kids as a parent have been after a storm. When my kid's really mad and then I'm just like super calm. We make such a joke about co-regulation and co-dysregulation at my house because my family often listens and watches and I'll be like, I was so co-regulated that just couldn't even get me. And then all these great things happen after, and they learn to be regulated. Teach scripts when they're regulated in those moments. Say, hey, the next time, just say to me, I need a minute. You don't even have to talk to me. You could just say, put your hands up for a minute. And then, develop some cue between the two of you. I'm feeling overwhelmed. There's nothing wrong. Kids don't magically develop regulation language, they learn it from you. So, how do we absolutely prevent some of this dysregulation? Reduce your sensory load, especially after school or after screens. Think about what's a sensory activity. Could you literally just do some jumping jacks or some bouncing or some swaying or figure eights? What can you do that's going to reset the nervous system quick? I do a lot of things, and you'll see in the next book, you're going to have lots of tools to be able to reset your nervous system in as little as 2 minutes, but I want you to spend 10 minutes a day. Build predictable rhythms. Predictability creates safety and better behavior. Again, you don't have to be the Gestapo about it, but have some routine. Always prioritize sleep. An exhausted brain is just much more likely to be rude. I certainly understand that. No non negotiables. Limit high arousal screen time, especially before transitions. If that's not avoidable, then make sure you're doing transition activities and build in regulation into your day. You're not going to expect regulation because the nervous system isn't going to know to be regulated. You have to actually practice it. Once you regulate yourself first and you support regulation with warmth, patience, kindness, it's going to come back, that kindness, the softness. And if you want to understand and reduce reactivity and rebuild connection, then take our solution matcher. It's the quickest way to stop disrespectful cycles and start healing and regulating that nervous system. You go to drroseann.com/help. I hope I got you thinking differently. It's not disrespect, it's dysregulation. And if we're not parenting by putting that nervous system first, we're just going to be the dog chasing its tail. And you are smarter and much more capable of that. And you and your kid deserve calm.
Want more insights and solutions? Well, subscribe to our Dysregulation Insider and it will show up in your inbox every week.